Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. This is another joint meeting of the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force and the Sustainability Committee. I think officially, because of the timing, it's a Clean Energy Task Force meeting with the sustainability folks as guests, and we'll do that sort of ruse until these two groups are formally merged. Like to start off by welcoming our newest member, Lydia Tadone. Lydia will be representing the Sustainability Committee from the Board of Ed, so replacing Jen Batchelor, who is stepping down. So Lydia, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Are you muted? I didn't hear that.
Right, I'm on. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you go. Yep.
No.
And just by way of introductions, we have from the Sustainability Committee, we have, I've got the Hollywood Squares, so the upper right, Joe Daly from Recycling Committee. We have Bob Crowther, Economic Development Commission, and those are the members. And we also have Rich Cortez, who's not here, from the Sustainability. And then we have Clean Energy Task Force, and that's Amy McLean and Bob Beinstein. We should be joined by Tim Walzak, who is Clean Energy Task Force. And actually, he was both, I think, right? He was both. But he's putting his kids to bed. And then we have two guests, Susan Olson, who amongst other things represents Citizens Climate Lobby, and then Bayard Faithful, also, who's been attending a lot of Clean Energy Task Force meetings. So Philip Perciello has stepped down. So he's got additional work responsibilities and I think a baby on the way. So
yeah, I think that's right.
Yep.
I'm sorry to hear that though.
Yeah,
he was a good man to have on the committee.
Yep, he really was. So Ray has graciously agreed to do minutes tonight, but I would throw that out there. Anybody willing to either take on the role of doing minutes or at least take a turn and maybe even be a coordinator of that, so to make sure we've got somebody in advance of the meeting, so there's not this awkward silence when we say, anybody want to do minutes?
You've been working with me too long, Mark.
So we're good for tonight. Thank you, Ray. Let me pull up our agenda. Lydia, why don't you, before you get started, why don't you just take a minute and introduce yourself? I think some of us know of the many things you've done in town, but just tell us a little of what you're currently doing and what maybe led you to join us.
So, sure. So with a few introductions, and I'm Lydia Tadone. I've been in town for almost 35 years, and our kids have been educated through Simsbury Public Schools and graduated and so forth. And I am a 24-year plus member of the Board of Education. I am rerunning again for another term in November. So I am in full campaign mode, and I also am chair of the Capital Region Education Council in Hartford, correct? And I am also past president of the Connecticut Association of Boards of Ed, and I sit on both those councils and those boards of directors. And I am also on National School Board Association based in Washington, D.C. So I basically run the gamut from local to state to federal, and have the opportunity to travel all over the country to, serve and observe school districts all around the country. So that's a little bit about me. And my husband is Peter, and so he was a almost 30-year member and retired from the Ambulance Association. So we're very involved in a lot of other areas in town. I'm also on the board of directors of Gifts of Love, so that keeps me a little busy in my free time. So
yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot of free time. You're a grandmother, and you're on grandmother duty tonight.
Yes, I have grandmother's duties tonight. We're here in Florida, so we are babysitting little ones. So anyway,
great.
But,
great. Well, great to have you. So the idea is these two committees, the Clean Energy Task Force and the Sustainability Committee, we're going to merge them. other towns have done this, or they've sort of rebranded their clean energy task force. So
Right.
we'll see. There may be a little bit of a shakeout as I think at this point the structure of the sustainability committee was kind of rigid, and it had several members that needed to come from the clean energy task force. So when we formally restructure, we may seek out one or two other sort of representatives of sort of key stakeholders. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have the clean energy folks and sustainability together.
So can I ask a few points of clarification since about this committee? What is the sole purpose of me as a Board of Education member on this committee? Is there someone from the Board of Selectmen also sitting on this committee?
So the original idea when they formed the sustainability committee was to, I guess what's important is the primary goal is to promote sustainable practices. And it happened really in the framework of the Sustainable CT program, the Sustainable
Right.
Connecticut program,
Yeah,
which is this, sort of quasi-governmental thing run out of Eastern Connecticut State University. Towns register, get points, and get certified as either bronze or silver. There is no gold yet. And the real focus of that committee was to get certified. And amazingly, we got silver out of the gate the first year. So now we're up to recertify in spring of next year. But I don't like to think that our only goal is to just sort of collect points and get a certificate on the wall, right? We really want to be promoting sort of sustainable practices. And we had when the committee was formed, it was fairly structured in terms of the representatives from Board of Ed, from Parks and Rec, which we no longer have. I think there were like 2 or 3 from Clean Energy Task Force, planning. It was Rich Cortez. So I think, so your role representing Board of Ed would be to be our sort of key liaison on sustainable practices, sustainable actions that can take place at the Board of Ed. And we can look at those. There is this list of actions for sustainable CT that you get points for, and we can have a conversation offline too to kind of go through what some of those are and what might be realistic goals for us to set for the Board of Ed.
Oh, okay. Because the reason why I just bring that forward, and I see Ray is town staff representing town. Would it not be more beneficial to have Jason Casey, and Ray, you know who Jason is, and from Board of Ed, or Andy O'Brien sit on this committee representing, because they are staff and they represent the Board of Ed? And I personally think they know more about the sustainable aspect piece of what's going on within the Board of Education day to day than I do as elected official sitting on the Board of Education.
That's
So I'm throwing that out because I'm trying to see where this committee is going from here forward, and with some of the goals, and I applaud you on the goals that you have done. I'm very familiar with a lot of things that you've done around the state and also around the country on because I do have the opportunity to travel. So I'm just trying to kind of pinpoint where the best use of Board of Education would be, in terms of utilizing Board of Education staff, either Jason or actually probably Andy O'Brien on this committee, that might be able to bring more to the table as we go forward with some of your goals and plans of action going forward with your committee or combining or what have you. So you don't have to tell me tonight. You can talk offline.
That's a good question, and thank you. I neglected to introduce Ray. Ray had his screen off when I was introducing him, but Ray Harris is our staff representative.
I've spoken to Ray, so
and honestly, I don't know the answer to that, but I think in general we tried to spare staff from another committee, and we turned to them as we're trying to get something done within their purview. But let me check into that and see if that as we go forward, whether that might make sense. As you say, somebody like an Andy O'Brien would be
right.
Terrific asset.
I mean, I'd love to be spending, time with all of you on the screen and get to know you better, but I'm just thinking in terms of purposes of the agenda, of your agendas, and between your task force and committee and and the next steps that you are going, forward with, especially with Board of Education, because we have so many things that will be going on, within Board of Education. And I'm just thinking that, the professional like Andy O'Brien may, will add much more credence to the committee in terms of your objectives.
Great.
So we can talk, further.
Thank you.
further on
Yep.
that.
All right, I think the first item on the agenda is actually public audience. So before we jump into the actual official agenda, does anyone have any, including our guests, any sort of random stuff? Baird, you want to just tell us a little bit about the EV show, the EV showcase at September Feast?
Your wife was wonderful. She was very busy. A lot of people wanted to see the Tesla. That was great.
Yeah.
And just very quickly, it was a nice event. We probably had about 100, 150 people stop by at some point to check out the different vehicles. The folks here in Simsbury at Mitchell were wonderful in terms of bringing some cars. We learned some things for next time in terms of location. We had a good location, but we probably could have had a better location. Overall, it was my only point of comparison is the Hartford. I think Mark, you and I both went to the West Hartford EV show. It was a lot better than that in terms of attendance, which was great. And the people who were there selling cars were very happy because I think 4 or 5 people actually committed or were very, very serious about buying EVs, which was great. But I thought it was a good event as far as exposure. So I was happy with it.
Yeah. I was sorry I couldn't be there, but as you said, my wife was there with our car. So we had a Tesla, we had a Volkswagen ID4, we had the Ford Mach-E, and a Volvo.
We had a Volvo. Yep.
And somebody showed up with their own, right? What did my wife say? Was there someone else?
We also had the Chevy.
Okay.
But it was a fairly good showing, it didn't blow my socks off, but I thought it was useful.
Well, thank you for taking the lead on that. And even though you're not even a member of these groups, just really appreciate you taking the lead. And I love the way you're already talking, the way you refer to it as the first year. This could, I think, be an annual event, and each, if we, as you say, maybe pick even a better spot next year. We've already kind of got some contacts, and we can get even more cars. Who knows what other cars will be available, a year from now, and maybe bring in some e-bikes or some of the other things we talked about. I think this would be a great event in a really fast changing, vehicle market. So thanks again.
Yeah, and just going with the commentary on roles and who's doing what. I'm a good organizer, and if there's another small event coming up, I would be glad to take it on.
Great, terrific. Susan, do you want to say anything before we jump in?
Well, I volunteer with Citizen Climate Lobby, and we're preparing for our next lobby day in November. And there's an initiative also to capture the voices of young people about their concern about the environment in a documentary that is being filmed now. I mean, young people are being interviewed, and I've alerted Simsbury High School, and they might be participating too, which is cool.
Terrific. All right, so let's jump into, I'll share my screen. Let's jump into our official meeting business. We have public audience. So we had minutes that Philip did of the September 8th Sustainability Committee and Clean Energy Task Force. These went out. So I don't think we need to do a reading, but did anybody have any edits? They were extremely detailed.
Oh, I was just about to say, they're nothing if not detailed.
Yeah.
So I think the next secretary is going to be in trouble because I don't know if anyone could match that.
It is great, especially for people like me with a really bad memory, but I don't expect, this. The only edit I would have is here, we can take out the question mark about, because it is Latimer Lane, right, is the school. It's being, so is there a motion to approve these minutes with that one edit?
I have motion to approve.
All right, there's a second. I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, Joe seconded. And any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions?
I'm going to abstain since I was not at the last meeting.
Okay, good. All right, so minutes. I think tonight's meeting is going to be fairly brief because I really think the bulk of, let me stop sharing. We've got Energy Plan Board of Ed. This is, I think, particularly going forward with these two groups brought together. It is a fairly broad mandate. And so I think it'll be unwieldy to, be making decisions and detailed planning and stuff. So I think the bulk of the real work is going to go on outside. I mean, an example was all the work Bear did on this EV show. That was mostly outside of this meeting. So, I don't think it's going to be a long meeting tonight because I don't think it's been a tremendous amount going on. But so in terms of the Clean Energy Task Force side, a couple things. One is that as you know, the task force approved our energy plan and agreed to present that to the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen. We also had a few edits to the climate emergency resolution that the Clean Energy Task Force drafted. I sent that around. Amy, I added something about the Connecticut not meeting its emission reduction goals. So we had initially decided at that meeting that we would pursue the energy plan, but hold off on the climate emergency resolution until we hire an energy manager. We then had a subsequent discussion at the meeting and we kind of had a change of heart and said, well, let's go with both. I had what I think was a really constructive call with Eric Wellman, and he is very supportive of everything that we're doing. We sort of went through this together and looked at sort of the timing, and what we came sort of upon together was let's get the energy plan going, but let's hold off on the climate emergency resolution. I think that was Eric's suggestion. And I think what we really want to do is get in the budget for an town energy manager position. And that's not going to happen off cycle. So we're going to have to wait till the next budget, which isn't that far off. So what I would propose is that we move forward with our energy plan. And the other really lengthy discussion that we had was this project coming up at Latimer Lane. And let me talk a little bit more about that and under the well, I guess actually now's a good time to talk about that. The town approved a budget of somewhere around 36 million for a renovation of the Latimer Lane School. The Public Building Committee has picked an architect for that. So Eric expressed a real strong support for us getting really actively involved there and doing really any work we can, so that as that work gets planned and gets done, we're able to provide options for a super high efficiency building envelope, make it net zero. So a couple things happening there. One is we have an invitation to speak at the Public Building Committee this Monday, October 18th, and to offer our input into that process. I had already sent a list of detailed recommendations to Jason Casey from the Board of Ed, and he was, I think, forwarded those to the Public Building Committee, and some resources. And I think Eric is committed to really getting us the support. And Lydia, this is something that you could maybe play a role with too. I think if we are able to just be at the table, and hopefully early enough, where as we are making designs and making this renovation at Latimer Lane, that it can be done in a really energy efficient manner. I think this is probably the biggest decision or biggest project that we could have influence on, right? We could do some cool things like swap light, do light bulb swaps and promote some energy efficiency in this or that building, but a significant renovation of this scale, to be able to have input and see that it's done possibly even to a net zero level would dwarf anything else that we could possibly do. So I think we're all maybe a little disappointed that we're not going to be pushing the climate emergency resolution yet, but I think we're only talking a few months, and I think it gives us a chance to get the energy plan going. And I think if we're going to take seriously any kind of a role working with the Board of Ed and the Public Building Committee on a net zero school renovation in Simsbury, that's going to be a fair amount of work. So let me pause there.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, Mark, because this is a project that has been in the wings, and blah blah. Well, so you've been around a long time, like me, and God, this plan has been on the back burner, with the town for years and years and years and years and years, and we're just so so happy that it did pass, and we are really looking forward to the Latimer Lane renovation, because it is sorely needed. I mean, that is the last school that has had any renovation to the school, and for those of you that aren't aware of the school, we even have the original library, which is in the library on the first floor, that was really 2 classrooms put together, the original art room. So just the entire building, when it was built back then, and the only additions were classrooms, grew, I think back in the 90s, don't quote me on the date, that we had 8 classrooms behind, that were built behind there. So this is as you mentioned, Mark, this is a very monumental project. We're very proud of this project is going forward finally for the community, for Simsbury, and for the students to come, but not just for today, but for the next 50 years, as they call it, in terms of life spans of educational facilities. So I'm excited about this. I'm glad that your committee is excited about joining forces, that we get the best building that we possibly can for our kids. So it's going to be it's exciting. It's really will be an exciting project now that it has passed, and hopefully soon that shovel will be in the ground.
So Mark, I can't remember at this point, but I believe that we did sort of speak with the engineers, and they said it was not too late. I'm sorry, I'm jumping because my cat brought a mole in, and it's over there, and I keep going like this because I don't know where the hell it is, but I'll have to deal with that later. So I was just wondering, so we're good with taking the energy efficiency approach with the building reconstruction, right? Isn't that correct?
Yes. I don't know. I know that they've picked an architect, and my hope and my prayer is that we're not too far along in the designs where we can't influence this, but I'm just optimistic, and I think we're going to maybe have to come at it with different fronts, right? Some of us may need to go to Board of Ed meetings. We may need to rally public support, but I'm hopeful that the Public Building Committee will be supportive, or at least be open to what we're proposing, and we're going to have to do our own homework.
So let me ask you a question here, Mark. Do we know when the Public Building Committee put out RFPs, select the architect, did they put anything in at all about qualifications around net zero, around energy efficiency? Because this is the same, like we're a little bit earlier in the process than we were with the junior high.
Right.
And I spent about an hour in Matt's office after that junior high thing, because I was out of the country when it was going on, and said, look, man, you guys got to get ahead of this. You got to start looking at, by the time you procure it, about 3/4 of the opportunity is gone because you've already picked a solution. So I'm hopeful. Let me say, I'm not optimistic, but I'm hopeful that they actually did a good job with the RFP this time. And if they didn't, then we got to have that discussion again.
Well, I think this speaks to your question about, if we're putting off calling it a climate emergency, because there are tangible things that I think can happen right now. This is kind of a great example of that. So instead of, calling something a climate emergency and making decrees like we all do this. We do the state, we do it everywhere. But I do think that focusing on the concrete, real change that can be affected now and this opportunity, and I don't know who, maybe Ray knows, maybe Lydia knows, maybe somebody knows what's the next concrete step that we have to do to make this happen? Is it Eric? Is it, I don't know. So I guess I just want to make sure what you're saying, Bob, is absolutely right. I worry about the fact that, the architect was picked. Was there anything in the RFP that said anything about sustainability? And what do we have to do to make that happen?
Yeah. I had the chance, when I talked to Jason, I've had a regular conversation with Jason Casey, who is kind of, what is he, technology director or something? Do you remember his title, Lydia?
Yeah, he's our new director of technology, but he wears so many hats now.
Yeah.
And he's the new Berkeley player that had many hats. Many of you may have met him before, but so he's the Berkeley player, and of the school district, wearing so many hats. And as I said, we're fortunate to have Andy O'Brien also, within our district and on staff also too, and they make a very good tandem team.
And
I'm not trying to be negative here, but we got all these people that are committed, and yet we can't get to the most basic activity.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. We've spent a lot of time talking to these guys. You select an architect. If the architect doesn't have the right skills to build an energy efficient or even better net zero school, and by the way, it's been demonstrated in Connecticut that those are not that much. There's not a big CapEx plus up, and there's a tremendous life cycle savings.
Yep.
Not to mention carbon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That it frustrates me that we're at this stage again.
Yep.
And Frank, and I'm going to just make one more comment, Mark, and then I'm going to shut up for a minute. This climate emergency thing, I get that we can't go off cycle. I get that that's a big deal that we need an energy manager to implement. But for me, this is just Bob talking, declaring the emergency puts urgency on the things that we need to do. If we don't declare an emergency and we go to the next budget cycle and everybody's like, that energy manager doesn't really fit, or, we've had a tough year or whatever. When we get to a school procurement, we get to the next procurement. If it's not an emergency, if it's not front and center,
right,
we have less incentive to do what we need to do. So I will now shut up and get off my soapbox.
I actually think you have a point, but I guess I was just thinking if it was attached to making something concrete happen and they wanted to have it be in the budget cycle so they could hire somebody, I could see that point. But I also see your point. You could declare the emergency and not have anything attached to it that's concrete, but it's there. So
right, you don't need an energy manager to acknowledge that.
Correct, I agree.
So yes, Bob, thank you for sharing that. I entirely agree. So our work with the Board of Ed and on the school, initially, this was back in August, Jason and I spoke, and he couldn't get, I guess the building committee didn't really want us to become presenting at that meeting, but Jason said, give me your suggestions and he will sort of voice them. So I sent him this email. I think I forwarded to this group, but I can resend it. And it was just a bunch of recommendations. So as you're picking an architect, as you're picking a construction manager, here are some considerations. Here's some resources. And this did get forwarded to the Public Building Committee. The good news is we are now invited to speak to them on Monday. So
now that the architect's been selected.
Yeah, the architect has been selected. Yep. the other thing I want to share is, and I sent a link, but I don't know that the link works. But there was a conference recently, the 2021 Eversource Net Zero Conference. And there are two presentations in particular that are very relevant. And one is amazingly relevant. This one, 2 new Connecticut zero energy schools. Really interesting presentation. It's about an hour long. And you have the architects and the builders and some school representatives for one of them is a new building and one of them is a renovation. So it's been done in Connecticut and there are people to talk to. We've got, and it's a fairly detailed presentation. So I want to go back through this in advance of Monday's meeting at the Public Building Committee. And the other one that's excellent is the first one, moving from the zero pathway to the zero highway. And that is Paul Torsellini. And Paul is in Connecticut. As I was saying, we strongly recommend inviting Paul Torsellini to speak to the Public Building Committee. He's based in Eastern Connecticut State University, is the principal engineer for Commercial Buildings Research Group at NREL. He worked closely with Mansfield on their net zero school. He literally wrote the book. He's done these guides to zero energy and zero energy ready K-12 schools and designing for the future. So he's an incredible resource. So I think part of what we want to do is arrange for him and some of these people in Mansfield and Manchester to sort of arrange an audience so that the Public Building Committee knows what is possible and that we can, not dictate terms, but offer options. And as you say, let's look at the lifetime energy usage of these buildings.
I mean, the other thing I'll offer, Mark, is that, I think I've mentioned this before, but I actually talked to her and she said it would be fine. She'd be happy to help. Kelly Lyman is a superintendent in Mansfield.
I know her very well.
Yeah, and Kelly, I asked her, I said, you are so excited. She's so pumped up whenever we talk about this school construction project. I said, would you be amenable to coming down and just having a conversation? And she said, absolutely.
So that's the other thing too, because Peter Millman, I believe, was very instrumental in that school in Mansfield. And he is regularly on the scene in Connecticut on the state level with all of the energy stuff. He, I'm sure, even on short notice, would be able to come and just, if we wanted to have folks that were from Mansfield and on short notice, I don't know. I mean, if you think it would help to have someone from Mansfield, because I can't remember if he's on what board he's on, but he was instrumental in getting that to happen.
Yep. Yeah,
He's spoken to the Clean Energy Task Force before as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah, on community choice aggregation.
Yeah.
He's Eastern Connecticut Green Action.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So some combination of, it's been done in Connecticut. We have the expertise, the builders, the architects, pretty much across the board know how to do it. They've done it. They'll do it if we ask them to, if we put it into the specs. So we need, and that may require some sort of rallying public support to make this happen. But we could land a whale on this one, right? This is the energy impact we could have by that will we'll live with for decades is just so big.
I mean, how long? Lydia? What's the life cycle of the school so far?
The life cycle when the school was built.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the school was built.
Ballpark.
But I want to say in the early 60s, if don't quote me, but I think back then. So what, 60? Yeah.
So you build a net zero school and you last another 50 years. Think about the energy savings and the cost savings over the life cycle of the school, the citizens of Simsbury.
Absolutely. And I'll also offer something. I saw somewhere you had in one of those, I think, sessions about Buckley Middle in Manchester. My son is a general superintendent with Gilbane Corporation, and Gilbane did the big renovation at Buckley Middle. So I spent time there seeing, just going over and watching, the development of the school. Buckley is a beautiful school. It's an old school. It's a city school. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to see any of these, renovated schools, but it's just outstanding. And I do remember now that he's, coming back to me, that the comments that, my son, had mentioned to me about the renovation of a beautiful school, and what they had to do to bring it up to where it needs to be. And it really is a jewel in the town, and Manchester is very, very proud of what they did. And so is Gilbane on that. So I do have, a lot of insight in this, because we have these conversations all the time when it comes to school renovations and schools of tomorrow, and from schools that were built 100 years ago to building schools of tomorrow. Because I also sit, as I mentioned, on the Craig Council, and we built the magnet school. So I've seen from the oldest magnet schools to the newest school being built over in Bloomfield. And so we're very excited about that school coming to fruition online also. So for me personally, schools are just very exciting. I love seeing how they can be, built, renovated to what they should be for the next generation of our kids.
Yep. So my primary goal right now, I want to go back through these recordings and take lots of notes and put together a couple of slides for Monday's Public Building Committee. I will keep you all in the loop. I'll send you everything I have. And if anybody else would like to attend that meeting, let me know. If you want to try and watch these recordings and can't get the link to work, let me know. It's kind of a pain. I asked Eversource if they would just put them on YouTube or give us a direct link. And they said they're going to try to do that, but I doubt it's going to happen quickly. But particularly both of them, but particularly the one on the two schools is highly relevant to this. So I think this could keep us busy for a little while.
What time is public build? Oh shit! What time is public buildings?
I'd have to look. I'm not sure. It'd be on. Just Google it.
That's fine. Is it an evening meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I may be able to do that. I will try to show up.
Okay. And I'll send you what I have in advance. So.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm pretty excited about that, because I think it's been a lot. Bob, you've been trying to get the ear of the various folks at the Board of Ed, and we've sort of been pleading, and I think they're committed to doing solar on all the new roofs across town. So I think it's really a kind of a new day.
Yeah. Now we just have to gang up on them at the meeting, because public buildings hasn't really been part of that discussion. It's been staff.
Yeah.
At the Board of Ed.
So I don't think we just did anything that requires a vote. So we'll move on to sustainability and the Sustainability Committee, and maybe just take a minute a couple minutes as an overview, partly for Lydia's benefit, but really maybe all of us. The Sustainable CT program, when you go to the website, you can download this list of all of the actions. There are, I'm going to go to the higher level. There are 13 categories of actions, all different types of sustainability things. So you've got equity is the first one, local economies, land and natural resources. 4 is vibrant cultural systems, planning, transportation, renewable energy, infrastructure operations, inclusive engagement, communication and education, strategic materials management, health and wellness, healthy, efficient, diverse housing, effective, compassionate homelessness prevention, and then a catch-all sort of innovation. So you need to do something in every category except I think 13. So you need to do at least one action in each category, and then each action. Now you go to the detail list, and there's all these point values. So let me just take an example of something that we think. So integrate sustainability into the plan of conservation and development, right? We actually think, so in 2019, we got 70 points here. A brief look says we might be able to get 40 points this year. And so if you jump in here to the detailed list, now it gets into the real weeds for what you have to do there. And for each of these, integrate sustainability into the plan of conservation development. It tells you there are sub-actions, gives you a detailed description, what you need to submit to get points, whether we see we've already been certified, so can we get rolling credit for stuff we've already done, or is it have to be done new? What type of an action and how many points you can get. So this document is extremely helpful, but it's really detailed, right? There are hundreds and hundreds of rows here. So when you're actually looking at, all right, we want to do this, we want to get points, this is the one you want to go to. But in terms of planning, what are we going to do to get certification? There's just a ton of things going on. It's just this huge sprawling project that it's not possible for us to go through the whole thing in meetings like this. I think some towns have done things like, this was pre-COVID, where you get everybody in the room, you got a big bunch of flip charts, and you're assigning responsibility and what towns say, who on the committee is taking the lead, what staff people you need to involve. So the bottom line is, Simsbury, to get recertified, will need to resubmit all these things by April of next year. To get, if I jump here to get, maybe it's in here. Is it in here? Bronze, you need, is it 200 points, and silver, you need 400. And I think the clincher is going to be this first category of equity events. And to get silver, you need to do 3 equity events. Bronze, you need to do 1. And what that means is you do some kind of an action, and you do it from the beginning with equity in mind, that you look at who are the potential stakeholders for this, who might be affected, and how can we do this in a manner that makes it accessible to all these groups and makes it equitable in the end. And there's a whole toolkit for running projects, for doing actions in using this equity lens. And there's training that we can get on that. I think we have a pretty good chance if everybody kind of hacks off an action or 2 or 3 and says, yeah, I'm going to take the lead, and I'll work with town staff, and I'll work with other groups that are doing things. I think we got a pretty good chance of getting the points. I think what may be a challenge, and we should start to plan as early as we can, or what are the equity actions going to be, and then we can get really good support from the Sustainable CT team in terms of how you do a project in through this equity lens. Does anybody on the team have anything to report on any actions, any progress or any actions that? Because I think the real work is going to have to take part outside of this committee. So I think if we're going to get there, everybody's going to have to kind of go through that list and say, yep, I'll take the lead on this one. I'll work with planning, or I'll work with this group. An interesting example, it doesn't all have to be done by us. A really interesting example is the pollinator group. Simsbury has a pollinator group.
Pollinator pathways.
Yes,
Yeah,
pollinator
right.
path-
And actually, there was a huge write-up, I guess, in Life magazine, or whatever magazine it is, Simsbury Life, on Joe and Nancy Campolita, who are the king and queen of pollinators.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that I also wanted to say, so there's stuff already happening over there. I think you're right. I don't think you need to like reinvent the wheel if it's happening. I think you just need to harness it. And I think bring it in and maybe lend sort of credibility, lend help to it, be able to help promote some kind of whatever it is they're doing. And I think the same is true with some of the, and I don't know this for a fact, but the same is true with some of the activities that are already happening in town through the Spirit Council, for example. If you want to talk about equity, I mean, we have lots of deep roots in that council, we being, I happen to. And so, I mean, I guess I feel like, you're right. We don't need to just come up with this. If we reach into some, like I could talk to Joe Campolita, for example, and I can say, hey, Joe, the Sustainability and Clean Energy Task Force combined group right now, would like to help you guys consider whatever it is you're doing, what is it that you're promoting? How is it that we might be able to give help to you on that? And I
Yep.
think that I would be willing to go that direction, for example, and try to make that kind of thing happen. Have we done anything with the pollinators at this point?
Yeah, I've spoken to Joe and Nancy and Jane Spatcher, and
Okay.
just here's the sub actions. Provide education to residents. They're
Yep.
planning on doing that. Create pollinator gardens. There's 15 points there. And then the town already passed a pollinator friendly community resolution.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
This is an example of a group that, either already
Right.
did or is doing this, or other things. If we reach out to groups, so you said Spirit Council is a good example. Sustainable CT has got lots of resources. We can maybe help them, and it's kind of a win-win. We do stuff together, we get the points, and we can help them. I had a conversation with Cheryl Cook and Nicole, is that her name?
Nicole, yes.
Because the co-leader of the Spirit Council right now. And so we need to have a more detailed conversation. Maybe we'll have them come to one of our meetings, or if Amy, if that's something you're interested in, maybe we can, have a smaller meeting with them and start to look at like this 1.3, develop and adopt a statement on equity. That might be something they, are interested in doing, and maybe they can sort of help us to do some of these projects with the equity lens.
Or they might just be doing them and we don't know about them. And I think that, this benefits the town. So it's not like we're taking their idea and taking credit for it. Not at all. We're just saying we're going to harness that and we're going to put it into this box because it's happening. And that just adds to the total of the points, which ultimately will help the town in general. So I think, we're only these many people here on this thing, and we're not, connected in that way. So people who are really doing it need to be the ones that tell us what they're doing, and then they can tell us what they want to do, and we can say, well, actually, it might fit here.
Yep. That's
So
exactly.
here's a question. Do any of you guys know if Sustainable CT is talking about increasing the equity section? And the reason I ask is, I don't know if anybody's following the politics around the infrastructure bills. But the IIJA, which is the 1.1 billion or whatever, the first one, the bipartisan one, is slated to have like 40% of its funding go to communities that have previously essentially been ignored. And I don't remember the exact wording, but there's going to be a ton more emphasis. I know in our world, at my new role, we're just hiring social justice people and EJ people as fast as we can hire, because it's the level of increased interest in this in the wake of social scandals, Me Too, George Floyd, Greta Thunberg, pick it, is way, way up.
Yep. I was going to mention that too. We're going to have opportunities from the state level because they're going to get a lot of influx of money. And if we are prepped and ready and we have applications that we could send, or if we can have our Board of Education or Board of Selectmen be asking for these things because we have an infrastructure built. And I think you do. I think we do. And I just think we have to kind of, it's still way up here, right? We don't know what's going to happen or what's going to come down. But there's
I don't know if they're going to get off their ass and pass it or not. Not to put too much of a fine point.
Yeah,
on it.
exactly. Hopefully they don't pass the first one.
I mean, there is a lot in the Sustainable CT program on equity. They just revised the whole system for this route for this year. So like last year, they made a bunch of changes to it. So I don't anticipate any more changes coming from them. I think that is the system we'll work with, but
Cool.
Equity is important. I'm happy to sort of work with folks on any actions that they would like to take the lead on. We have this spreadsheet. You should be able to, the hope was that the agenda has a link to this thing. But if you look at this high level action list, this shows roughly where we got points in 2019 and then what we're planning for 2022, right? And these are draft, right? A lot of these are guesses, whether it's new or rolling, who's taking the lead, and then who we should consult, who we should involve. So these are really, just placeholders. I may have put some of your names in there. I would encourage you to go through this list. If you can't get to it, if the link doesn't work, just let me know. But go through this list. I think if all of us kind of lop off a few and say, I'll take the lead. There are, I'm happy to work alongside, anyone. There are a lot of resources from the Sustainable CT program itself. One of the cool things is if you go to the website for Sustainable CT, and you go to participating communities. So there's a map of all the towns that are either registered or certified. And if you say, and I know, Joe, you've done this already, right? If there's some activity that you think, all right, let's do complete streets. So I check here and then I hit filter. Then it shows me on the map those towns that did that, that have that credit. So you can pick any town and say, all right, here's Burlington did 6.1. Let me go look at their report and see what they did, see what they submitted. And you go down here to, what was it, 6.1? And then you can actually see the things that they submitted. And the Sustainable CT team can put you in touch with somebody in Burlington who took the lead on that, right? So there's lots of resources. So if there's an activity that you're curious, gee, could we do this? What does it take? Browse through here. You can see what other towns who already did this, did, and what they submitted. So it's a terrific set of resources here.
Yeah, Mark, I wonder if there's anything about the Mansfield or Manchester schools, and I'm not sure when they file for last certification.
Yeah, there's we can look that up. There is there's some high performance building stuff. And we can, what is it? We're like, I won't take our time now, but energy use, achieve high energy performance for individual buildings, 7.3. That tends to be a lot of LEED stuff. So it's likely that that Manchester and or Mansfield and maybe others, are either seeking or got credit for these buildings. So that's something we should.
And Mark, wouldn't the stuff that we're doing with the school fit into some of these categories? Like the stuff we're trying to do with Latimer Lane, if that was to come to fruition, would that fit into any of these categories?
It'd be high performance buildings.
Right. So, I mean, that's a big, a lot of points maybe, but I mean, so that's one effort that's happening, but I hear what you're saying about the other ones too.
So the high energy performance is 7.3. Let's just take a look. Getting seasick yet?
Getting there.
Achieve high energy performance. Achieve a score of 75 or above on the municipal or Board of Ed building and Energy Star portfolio manager. Achieve LEED 0 status.
The hell is LEED 0?
Or LEED Silver.
I don't know, but those things are always fraught. So
Yeah.
I think, I think we're chasing unicorns a little bit. I think we want to try to be as concrete as we can. The smaller stuff is just as important, if not more sometimes, because you're really building a community kind of approach there, which I like.
Yeah.
So.
Let me be the heretic here for a minute. When we embarked on this sustainable CT thing, we had that joint meeting, and we decided, this is something worth going for. I'm not a huge fan of chasing points like this. This is not something that I think is really productive.
I'm kind of with you on that.
But what my final thought was on it is, we didn't have a focus on doing this kind of stuff in Simsbury.
Right.
And what I thought it might provide, and I think it has, I think I see a little bit of that, is sort of a commonality in language and in focus for us to begin to engage all the different, agencies and boards in town with they would have a similar vocabulary. It's centered around this, I mean, this is no different than envision and infrastructure. It's one of the things we talk about is it has a common language for all the stakeholders. And then you can kind of circle around a goal because we're not talking past each other. So,
Yeah,
and I think we're achieving that with it. So I'm a big fan, but I don't like the focus on 10
So
for this instead of 5.
Yeah.
We want to become a more sustainable community, and to
So
do
it's
that, we have to
kind of like a guideline, like a list of things that you can do. It gives you the language, it gives you the common, communication points that are happening in other places. You don't have to come up with it. And I agree with you. I think it does act as that. And I think that, but we should always keep it sort of, what is it that we need to do for us here and what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck? And yes, if we can get points for it, great. Might have been an idea of theirs, but.
Right, we're on the same page.
The other thing, just a quick reminder, there are these community match funding. There's a lot of money available through Sustainable CT. And the way they've set it up is you crowd fund some money. So like if the Pollinator Pathway Group, or if a group that wants to build, promote recycling here or do something here, if they can crowd fund some money, and it's a qualifying project, then Sustainable CT will match it. And there's even a website called Patronicity that makes the crowdfunding fairly easy to do. And this is so if you just saw how I got there, this community match fund, right from the homepage of Sustainable CT and this view projects, is this really cool presentation. And I'll skip through a few pages. It's got a little background, but what it has is a one-pager with mostly pictures on what other towns did to get matching grants. So if you just want to get some ideas, look through here, whether it's recycling or EV charging or pollinators, this is the Branford heat pump program. Yep. So it's heat smart, energy efficient lighting, composting. And then again, we can look at what they submitted. We can get in touch with people there. I mean, there's lots and lots of resources. So I encourage you to just poke around here and remember that conversation, Bob, where it's like, if all we're going to do in Sustainable CT is document stuff we've already done, then what's the point? But let's look through here and say, wow, we should do that too. And let's reach out to the group in Talnick and help them get the funding, and get certified.
Yeah, and along those lines of reaching out to people, I gave your name to somebody.
All right.
Woman named Judy might call you from Windsor.
All right. Good. So feel free to reach out to me if there's anything you want to, take the lead on or get more involved in or want more information on. And I think that's pretty much it. We've got any other business? Anything more in open forum?
So I just will say, Mark, for the record, that my bandwidth is getting really, really limited in this new role, and I am struggling to stay on here. So I may not be the most productive member for a little while. For those who don't know, I joined a 58,000 person firm to direct environmental and social governance across the Americas. So I got my hands a little bit full. But
nothing to it. Come on.
Yeah,
Geez.
I think I already know everybody. It's been 2.5 months,
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's a joy. It is a labor of love. It's a really fun thing. I'm enjoying doing it, but I am like way overwhelmed.
Yeah, but if all you do is come to our meetings and give us your insights, and then what we've seen you do spectacularly is come to town meetings and speak eloquently. So
yeah, I'll try. I can keep doing that from time to time. I'm traveling a little bit, but yeah, I just wanted you to know that I'm not trying to like shirk off on the committee work, but I'm pretty done.
I'm not hung up on getting recertified. You know, I could go down as the guy who ran our sustainability certification into the ground, but I can live with that.
So as long as we're progressing and going the right way.
Sherry
Okay.
Callan just killed this. You know, she
Oh, she was amazing.
and Tom Roy and a lot of people, but they just did an incredible amount. I don't have the bandwidth to do, you know, what they did. I think if we all rally and we can get silver, get bronze, that'd be great. And who knows, we might just get on a roll. But let's do some fun projects, and you know, as you said, Bob, kind of be out there talking about sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep spreading across the different boards. You know, obviously, Public Building Committee is a place we need to weigh in. I think we've made some progress with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed.
Yeah,
we just need to keep going. Keep doing that, because that's what's going to create the results, is when not us are pushing it, but others see the logic and the benefit in the things that we recommend.
I just want to say something. I just realized who Ray is. And Ray was out in front of my house. And when they were doing the roads, the sidewalks in Terriffill, and I was like, hey, I need your help. And he
Yes.
comes over, I go, look, I have no front walk. He's like, yeah, we got it. And I was like, what a nice young man.
Try.
he's
And then
everywhere.
I'm like, oh my God, it's him.
Just doing my job.
Yeah, well, you're doing a good job.
All right, let his boss know.
That's right.
All right.
CC, Tom Roy on those niceties, okay?
All right.
Great. How are the sidewalks, Amy? Good?
Oh yeah, all good. And the grass is almost all grown back.
Yeah,
They
it came
got-
in pretty quick. That was nice that it
Yeah,
came in
really
that
did.
quick.
We've
So.
had some
Yeah.
nice warm weather to get it done,
Yeah.
yeah.
A
That's
little bit of rain
beautiful
might help
project.
too, but
Hey,
fun
when
to
we're
see it
doing
fill in.
sustainable CT, let's not overlook that from a walkability standpoint. That was a tough road.
Yeah.
That was so cool that we have sidewalks all the way up Elm Street now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is amazing, you know. I mean, it's thank you, the town, whoever did that. That was great.
And next year it'll be finished because they'll come up 189 with that multi-use trail that they're working on, and it'll connect the whole neighborhood because we'll finish off to Main Street.
Nice.
That's fabulous.
That's great.
Yeah, let's not overlook that when we're doing sustainable
Yeah.
CT.
Great.
All right. Is there any other business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'm always ready with that one.
All right. Well, great. Thanks, everybody. Let's stay in
Thanks.
touch.
Good.
All right. Good night, everybody.
See you.
Nice seeing everybody. Bye-bye now.